Marketing history has its own heroes and anti-heroes, triumphs and failures that become cautionary tales for entire generations. But few cases can overshadow the symbolic and rapid collapse of Pets.com in terms of its sheer notoriety. This wasn't just a failed business model, it was a spectacle played out before the eyes of all America, with the most charming main character and the most predictable yet no less dramatic finale. The company, which spent $11.8 million on an ad campaign with a puppy mascot, almost a third of its annual revenue, declared bankruptcy 268 days after its star hour at the Super Bowl. In narrow marketing circles, they still joke with bitter irony. That puppy was too expensive to just bark on screen. He literally tore his brand apart. This story is not just a chronicle of failure, but a parable about how blind faith in the power of virality and the charm of cuteness can make one forget the fundamental laws of economics.
The late 1990s, the world was on the verge of a digital revolution, and Wall Street was obsessed with a new religion, .coms. It was in this vacuum, where ideas were valued above profit and potential above actual results, that Pets.com was born. The idea was simple to the point of genius: the first national online pet store. But in a market saturated with startups, it needed to stand out not so much by its idea, but by its face. And that face became a puppy. The idea for a talking puppy mascot whose shadow would haunt the company throughout its short existence was proposed by an external creative director, inspired by the nascent era of viral content and Japanese trends where anthropomorphic characters were already winning the hearts of consumers. Rumor has it that deep within the company, there were sensible employees who insisted on more human and honest marketing, perhaps with real pet owners and their stories. But the opinion of top management, intoxicated by the successes of Amazon and eBay, proved decisive. The puppy was chosen as the weapon of mass destruction. One can easily imagine that very scene playing out in one of the designer rooms in San Francisco with coffee-stained creative boards. All night long they argued, whom would America choose for breakfast? A talking dog? A piece of flying toast? Or a dancing grandfather? The puppy won. It was safe, cute, universal, and inoffensive. It was the perfect vessel for pouring in millions of investor dollars. No one then asked the simple question, what exactly is this puppy selling?
The decision to participate in the Super Bowl was not spontaneous. It was desperate. In 2000, an advertising slot during the most-watched sporting event in the US was not just a purchase of airtime. It was an act of coronation, a statement of one's greatness. For Pets.com, whose actual sales remained meager, this was a leap across a chasm with faith that glory awaited on the other side. And they jumped. The commercial with the talking puppy, its signature phrase, "because pets can't drive," and the associated activities cost the company those very $11.8 million. For a startup whose revenues were phantom and business model fragile, this sum was astronomical. According to unconfirmed reports, another $3 million or so was spent on working with influencers and a PR campaign designed to amplify the effect of the ad, but the result was almost zero. Analysts would later call this decision a classic case of hyperbolic marketing. Spending a third of all resources on a single advertising campaign is like playing roulette, betting your entire fortune on red just because black had come up the previous 10 times. They believed in the magic of the Super Bowl, in its ability to turn brands into legends. They failed to consider that a legend needs a solid foundation.
February 7, 2000, the Pets.com ad aired, and the expected happened. The puppy blew up TV screens. In the first weeks, the audience actively discussed him. He appeared on morning shows, newspapers wrote about him. Brand recognition skyrocketed. But the emotions, as is often the case with viral phenomena, were mixed. Alongside delight, there was skepticism. Cute, but what are they selling? I remember the puppy,
but I don't remember the website. Attempts to replicate the success of foreign colleagues who had built brands on strong characters didn't work. The virality was one-sided. Persistent rumors suggested that a significant portion of the discussions on social media, which then existed in the form of forums and chats, were stoked by the company's own PR people, creating an illusion of hype. But there were catastrophically few authentic reviews that translated into brand loyalty. The puppy truly became a part of pop culture, but not in the way its creators had hoped. He flashed in memes, but within a week, he became a subject for bitter jokes. Buy a puppy, save the company. The irony was merciless. The company bought attention, but it didn't buy love. And even more so, it didn't buy customers. This is where the main tragedy of Pets.com lies. Brand awareness was approaching 60%, but sales remained at the level of a statistical error. Why? Analysis conducted after the collapse revealed fatal miscalculations. Fact 1, the company failed to stand out. The advertising market was oversaturated with cuteness. The puppy was drowning in a sea of equally charming characters, advertising everything from soda to cars. The product, which were heavy bags of pet food and litter, was out of focus. The puppy was a dissonance to the actual offering. Fact 2, killer logistics. The company offered free shipping, but the cost of shipping a bag of food across the country was many times higher than its cost price. They lost money on every sale. The puppy, ironically, urged people to buy even more, exacerbating the losses. One of the most poignant quotes to reach us from internal discussions belonged to an anonymous mid-level manager. "We weren't buying a puppy, we were buying an illusion of easy fame. We thought he would pull the sled of sales behind him, but he just sat on them and smiled cutely, while we ourselves dragged that load up the hill." The story of the Pets.com puppy became a textbook example that virality does not always go in hand with real business efficiency. You can be the most famous puppy in the country and still not sell a single extra bag of food. After the short-lived euphoria of the Super Bowl came a harsh morning. By the summer of 2000, the company had no operational reserves left. Investor money was melting away at a catastrophic rate, and a new round of funding, which management was counting on, was not materializing. The dot-com bubble had burst, and Wall Street sobered up abruptly. An exodus began. Competitors like Petstore.com and Petopia.com were in the same hole, but their fall was less spectacular. Rumors of impending mass layoffs spread through the company. Word was that management held out hope until the very end for a new miracle move, perhaps the release of plush puppy toys for extra revenue. And only after an urgent internal audit did they fully grasp the scale of the disaster. The picture of the final days was grim and symbolic. In the emptied office, where work once boiled and grand plans were made, a lone puppy costume, used for promo events, slowly gathered dust on a chair. And it seemed as if it too was sad about its failure, about the unrealized hopes, and about the price it had to pay for a few minutes of fame. On November 7, 2000, 268 days after the Super Bowl ad, Pets.com officially announced its liquidation. Shares once worth $11 were bought back for pennies. The puppy mascot, the company's most recognizable asset, was sold at auction. The formal end of Pets.com became the starting point for countless analytical articles, business case studies, and university courses. The company began to be cited in marketing textbooks as a classic example of miscalculation in assessing advertising risks and the disconnect between PR and business reality. This case became a modern parable about how fashion, ambition, and blind faith in cuteness can ruin a business if one forgets its essence: the product, logistics, and economic viability. The puppy was a brilliant tactic in a vacuum, but an absolutely failed strategy in the real world. The legacy of Pets.com lives on in the form of bitter irony. In industry chats, a joke still circulates. Want to go bankrupt quickly? Get a puppy and a Super Bowl ad. Its mascot became a symbol of the .com era, just like the Apple logo, but with the opposite, cautionary meaning.
The story of the Super Bowl puppy is not a tale of stupidity. It is a story of the delusions of an entire era, of how people, blinded by the tech boom, made a series of naive mistakes. They paid $11.8 million to hear the bark of millions of people, but failed to hear the quiet whisper of common sense. The price of advertising risk proved unbearable when it wasn't backed by real value. Virality turned out to be a soap bubble that burst the moment it touched the ground of business metrics. And the empathy evoked by the cute mascot only worked in one direction. People loved the puppy, but they did not love the company. There is something poetic and Shakespeareanly tragic in how this story unfolded. When the puppy closes his eyes in the final credits of that very commercial, it seems it's not just the end of an ad, but the end of an entire illusion in marketing. The illusion that charm alone is enough to build an empire. Pets.com reminded everyone that even the cutest puppy cannot live long without food. And in a business sense, food is provided not by applause, but by profit.
Subscribe to Business Obituaries. We're cooking up new stories of epic failures for you. Your like helps this channel grow.